a warm welcome to everyone. This is where you're all from, not all of you, because you're spread across the world in different time zones. But you can see that globally, we have touched every continent except for Antarctica. So next slide. This is our most geographically diverse meeting, as I mentioned, over 60 different countries. And because of that diversity, we would like to make sure that GA4GH is reaching out to all of you. And so please take this survey. You can get it also from the website of equality, equity, diversity, and inclusion for GA4GH. And we're very aware that this is a difficult and complex time for many people around the world due to the COVID situation. So thank you very much for spending time here today on this. And working in this new way. It does give us opportunities, which is this incredible reach of this plenary this time round. The GA4GH community has responded to the COVID-19 pandemic. You can learn more about it at this URL. Many of the people in our community have produced new tools or done new data analysis across over the last 6 months. Now, just to remind you, if you are attending this, assuming you are attending this, do use headphones. Pretty obviously, make sure your internet connection locally is as strong as possible. And put yourself on mute unless you're speaking. And we're here to help. So please use the chat box to get in touch with us. You can go to the Slack channel, which is on your, the instructions are on the plenary page. And you can also just send us plain old 1980s email, which will reach us at operations@ga4gh.org. So this is the URL to keep you connected over the next 2 days. We're in different time zones, so there are different tracks that you can follow, but please use this to know when you can tune in and where you go next. There's a wonderful virtual meeting room and chilling out area. So you can communicate between different members of this plenary community via Slack. So join the GA4GH Slack workspace. You can engage on Twitter with the hashtag GA4GH 8th Plenary. You can book one-on-one meetings. And there's going to be this wonderful tool called Spatial, which is a kind of virtual coffee and bar center. Now the bar has a very cheesy looking leather banquette style approach, and Heidi and I are planning to hang out at the bar at some point in some time zone on this. So we also would like to just check that you can ask a question. So please go to Slido, so sli.do in your web browser, and enter the event code GA4GH 2020. And Angela and the team have amusingly asked you to ask Ewan anything. And so please test this out now so that you know that it can work. So please, you can ask your questions and then you can vote up or vote down. I love some of the questions already. So I'd like to show, so it looks like many of you have learned how to use Slido. That's brilliant. And that is great. So I'll answer some of them. It's whiskey without an E, so Scotch whiskey for me. The speed of an unladen swallow, I believe the right answer is European or African. I can't quite remember. Which plenary location has been my favorite. I'm not sure, actually. I quite like Leiden, actually. Does Ewan have real hair? The answer is yes. What am I going to have in the virtual bar? Is it a virtual beer or a virtual white wine? I'm planning to have a real Riesling, and it's chilling in the fridge. And how long do you think it will be until we have representation from Antarctica? Well, I'm not sure, but I'll get Angela and the team on Antarctic penguin representation. And just to say, I'm speaking from London is one final good one. So that looks like it has worked well. Thank you very much for everybody who put in those questions. So this is the way you ask questions, is you use Slido on GA4GH. Right. Okay, let's see if I can continue. Perfect. So there's a virtual poster session. Please join that virtual poster session. It is at 6 p.m. tonight, or 1 a.m. Tomorrow, if you're in my time zone, which is London. But other time zones are available, and that's precisely why it's going to fit some of you much better to be doing the poster event at 1 a.m. Right. And this is the connect process to see a poster. We're miming this process on the event website where you can listen in to someone playing, talking about their particular poster. We'd love you to give your feedback as well about the whole plenary. Come to the video booth on the plenary event website at GA4GH 2020. And now just to talk you through the rest of today, coming up in this session after me, after the opening, will be the importance of diversity in genomic datasets, and then uniting ethical and technical solutions to harness the power of data. Tomorrow we have real world implementations from basically different time zones in track 2A and track 2B. Oh, I should have gone through those one by one. There we go. This should go without saying, but just to remind you, we expect all attendees to create an inclusive environment, and that includes when you're interacting virtually. So be respectful, be transparent about potential conflicts of interest, and the following won't be tolerated: discrimination, harassment, sexual harassment, disrespectful behaviors, or violence. Oops, right over, yeah. Here we go. And so just in a moment, I'm going to be handing over to Heidi, but I'd just really like to thank the committee members who have put this together so well. They're from across the world, and they've really helped make this virtual and global event something that I'm already very proud that we've done. We'll come on in a moment to Heidi presenting the gap analysis and the roadmap, but also like to thank the nice people in Melbourne who gave up their plenary slot to allow this virtual meeting to happen. Right, with all of that, I am going to start on describing the Global Alliance in more detail. So what is the Global Alliance? We enable responsible genomic data sharing for the benefit of human health. So we do that in a human rights framework. We activate a human right that has been signed by every country in the UN. And we help set standards and develop policy framing as we set technical standards and do policy framing to enable this world of genomic data sharing. We're big, we have many people in many countries. We have real world concrete projects associated with us. We call them driver projects. You don't have to be part of a driver project to contribute to GA4GH, but we expect the people in these projects to contribute. We're organized into 8 different work streams that help us organize what we do. We develop standards. There are 20 such standards that we have developed, and 7 regulatory policies and frameworks. We have, it's not really part of our goal to make code that implements and deploys as part of GA4GH, but many of our members have implemented and deployed the standards that we're talking about in real world situations. And all of this, we hope, enables the global learning health system by sharing data between different locations. So just to talk about that data journey. So citizens or patients are going to donate their data for research, but they will do that in a way that they trust, that works with their own legal, ethical, and cultural norms. And to do that, very often they'll be working with an institution that they know. That might be a research institution, it might be a hospital, it might be the government of the country that they live in. And their data is likely to be, that donation of data will happen under the oversight of a research ethics committee, and that research ethics committee will set up a data access committee. And then clinicians and researchers will want to responsibly use that data to make discoveries. That's the whole goal. And it's one of the human rights that we're activating, which is the right to participate in science via this process. And the research that the clinician or the researcher does will hopefully inform human health. Now, GA4GH standards are across all of this area. And this is quite a busy slide, but it's a busy slide because it is complicated. So we help understand how the consents should be written framed in a way that's appropriate, that different countries and different institutions can take that framing and adapt it to their local needs. So we never develop a standard consent, but we talk about the clauses that can be used in different places in different countries. We help set the standards for the data transfer of the pragmatics of genomics. So BAM, CRAM, VCF, all these other things. We help understand how research ethics communities should communicate with each other and how the use of data is recorded inside of organizations. And then we have a whole host of different standards here to allow the researcher and clinician to use different data sets. That's wrapped up in our security and access layer, which is the work stream is called the jury work stream, and the standard is called the GA4GH passport to do this. And at the end of the day, we hope that this enables researchers to get access to data in a responsible manner and for them to use that data responsibly to further human health. Now, we've been doing this for quite a while. This is our 8th plenary. Every 2 years, we go about refreshing our roadmap. And I'm now going to hand over to Heidi Rehm, who's going to take us through the latest refresh of the roadmap so you can see where we're going over the next couple of years. Heidi.
Thanks, Ewan. It's a great pleasure to be able to talk about our roadmap. I'm going to let Justina continue manning the slide. So next slide. So the roadmap is actually broken into two pieces, a strategic roadmap and a product roadmap. These are publicly accessible to the community now and are launched. Oh, it does say I have control. Let me see if I can actually do this. Yes, that worked. There's two components of this. There was the strategic map that's been informed by this gap analysis. And this gap analysis was led by myself and Andrew Morris, who I see is also tuned in right now. And the goal was to identify gaps that may not arise during our work stream roadmap process. So we have, these amazing, talented teams working in work streams that are in the weeds, figuring out what's needed in their space. But sometimes with so much work in the weeds, coming up and refreshing from a top view to sort of look below and see, do we have gaps? Are we missing things? And that was really the goal of this separate gap analysis. To do that, we conducted both a survey and Andrew and I held many conference calls with members of work streams and driver projects to really gather and ask questions and get feedback in many aspects of Global Alliance. That feedback was collected, consolidated into specific concepts. We then presented to the Global Alliance Steering Committee all of those concepts and let the steering committee rank them in terms of importance. And that allowed us to select the top 6 or so that were then coalesced into 3 major areas of focus that we have committed to expanding our reach into based on this gap analysis. So the 3, I'll go through them one slide at a time. One is around interoperability and alignment. And this is really ensuring that our own standards are interoperable with each other and are aligned in terms of being able to use them to solve real world solutions. What does success look like? Well, truly interoperable standards that enable solutions that can encompass multiple components of a pipeline, multiple platforms and use cases. And how are we working to accomplish that? Both through what we call our task, technical alignment subcommittee, and this spans across our work streams to help keep activities in alignment through the use of things like schema blocks that allows us to harmonize around our semantics, subjects, and various sort of core components of our standards, as well as through connection demonstration projects, demos, and I'll show you those in a few slides from here. The second area was really in implementation support. We had a lot of effort to bring a first round of standards out, but actually instantiating those standards in your own environments is sometimes challenging. And we heard feedback that better support on the implementation side was a top priority. And so we are focusing on that. Success is really around the driver projects and the broader community being able to quickly adopt and implement our standards. That drives uptake and interoperability across the community. How are we, working on that? Well, that includes launching reference implementations, essentially demonstrations of implementations, documentation pooling, the GA4GH Planet API, which is a registry of all our standards. Again, connection demos, demonstrating actual usage, and then training things, online resources, in-person training seminars, live and recorded webinars, all of those things helping our community with implementation. And then the last item that was selected was really for more engagement with healthcare, which of course has many elements to it, as well as clinical standards. We've been a little more centric to the research genomics community, and we really feel we need to do more in the healthcare and clinical standard side. What does success look like? Ability to efficiently and effectively respond to the needs of clinical stakeholders and develop standards that support the healthcare industry. So how are we doing that? Well, we've already transitioned what started out as the national initiatives effort that Catherine North and Mark Caulfield were leading and continue to lead, but now in its new format called GIF, or Genomics and Health Implementation Forum. It's now more formally an implementation arm of the Global Alliance, really allowing groups working to implement genomics and health into their environments and being able to come together as a community, share best practices and how they're going about implementing, as well as bringing areas in need of standards and support, particularly more on the healthcare side. Also, cross standards development organizations consortium, really working across the different standards bodies, ISO and HL7 and others that we work with closely. And then the last thing which we're planning to do, haven't yet started, is develop a clinical advisory group that has stakeholders in different areas of healthcare, whether it be EHRs, healthcare providers, payers, clinical laboratories, others that can really represent the needs of those communities and ensure that we are supporting and interacting with those bodies and filling gaps where needed, but making sure we're not, covering areas already covered. So that's the sort of strategic roadmap and areas of focus. We also have our more detailed product roadmap that comes directly from our work streams that are all listed here. And so this, I'm not going to go through them all in the interest of time, but this lists all of the planned new deliverables for this next year and a half that are already underway and being worked on. And that will expand. The next slide is our approved deliverables. So these things that are already approved through Global Alliance and really showing the amazing work that's happened to date from our work streams, which we are very proud of. And then moving on. So now I want to show, get into the actual demonstrations of our standards in use and talk a little bit conceptually about how we think about that. But to start us off, we have this really, really cool animated video, and I think Justine is going to be able to run that for us.
University Hospital is a global leader in infectious disease research. Anna is a member of the UH faculty, where she leads a team in studying a deadly pathogenic disease. Like many of her colleagues, Anna would like to work with more datasets around the world in order to analyze the genomic and health-related data of as many patients as she can, in order to identify genetic variants associated with better outcomes and guide better clinical treatments. Similarly, UH and institutions like it want to make their troves of data available to researchers like Anna. But without interoperable methods for researchers to efficiently identify, access, and analyze data of interest to them, none of this is possible. Right now, Anna's team can easily interrogate local UH data, but working with datasets around the world is challenging. Without large interoperable cohorts, the statistical significance of their results remains low, limiting their ability to advance the field. But it doesn't have to be this way. A suite of software tools powered by GA4GH standards can connect researchers like Anna to a global network of data in a secure and responsible way, unlocking its potential to benefit human health. First, the GA4GH Discovery APIs allow data stewards to make their datasets findable. Anna can query this large network to identify datasets that are relevant to her study. For each dataset she wants to analyze, Anna works with the corresponding data access committee to acquire permission. GA4GH standards help these groups to reliably determine whether Anna's proposal is within the scope originally agreed to by the data donors. Her approved requests are added to her virtual identity. And now she can begin working with the data. With the GA4GH Cloud APIs, Anna's lab is transformed into a virtual hub, connecting her to all the data she needs to do her job well, although she will instruct software machines to carry out much of that work on her behalf. Anna tells each machine where to go, what data to analyze, and which analysis tool to use. Equipped with these instructions, the software machines head out to analyze a portion of the data right where it sits. Only machines with authorized access to this data are allowed to enter. The machines carry out Anna's instructions, which is made possible because the institution has packaged its data in a universal way, also according to GA4GH Cloud standards. Each machine brings back its analysis result to feed into Anna's study. As a security measure, the data steward may remove access from Anna's software machines once the analysis is complete. Anna's team fits the pieces together to reveal a genetic variant associated with better outcomes, a new insight they could never have seen if the datasets were not interoperable. Anna is just one researcher, but her story isn't unique. Someday, we hope that every researcher in the world can access a global network of data from the comfort of their lab, revealing otherwise hidden knowledge of human health and disease.
Awesome. That was cool. So, so I hope you enjoyed the little video of giving a high-level view of what we're trying to achieve. Wouldn't it be great if we could do all of our science that quickly and get access to the data that quickly? But we are on that path. Let's see if I can go to the next slide. So as we think, there we go. So as we think about what are we doing to actually make that little animated vision work for us, it's really about instantiating our standards into real world use. And so we think about that in a couple of different ways. Horizontal connections, that is adopting Global Alliance standards across systems. And that allows us to do, individual tasks with reliability and get reproducible results, that sort of portability. And so we have actual examples now across multiple groups, in this case, DNA Stack, the Terra platform at the Broad, Elixir, 7 Bridges, all implementing, a particular standard and enabling a single task like a GWAS analysis of 1,000 genomes data to be performed in all the systems in a reliable and reproducible way. So these are demonstrations of actual success in this area. We also think about vertical connections. And in this case, it's really an end-to-end use of a series of standards, a suite of standards, starting from access, all the way to WES and DERS, workflow execution services, data repository services, all the things you need to do a whole end-to-end, in this case, a controlled access use case, for example. And this is a real live demonstration done by DNA Stack using multiple cloud environments as well to really show how our suite of standards can interoperate and enable more complex activities across the systems. Where are we today? We're actually doing both a combination of the horizontal and vertical. The darker blue is the Global Alliance standards. There are still pieces of the puzzle that may have, proprietary or single system based solutions inside them. So it's not entirely interoperable across every element, but really by bringing these vertical stacks together and working across them horizontally, that is now bringing a path to enable multiple data sets across multiple platforms to be accessed. And we now have, in the next slide, on the top of this slide, above that little line, are platforms, vendors, groups that have implemented vertical stacks, allowing them to use the Global Alliance standards to actually do real life solutions. And below the line are data sets and platforms that are hosting this data that have been accessed for these demonstrations. So we're really excited about showcasing the actual usage of the standards in real life. And where we plan to be in 2021 is that those full vertical stacks entirely represent Global Alliance standards, which allows crisscross, sort of cross-platform connections at any point in the process, so that there is full interoperability, ability to use data sets and workflows and different aspects across all of these systems. That solution is what will allow us to actually achieve the full animated video that showed Anna being able to actually bring these data sets together to bring more data to a question that couldn't be solved without a much larger data set. So that's just a little highlight of sort of the demonstrations that you're going to see. I will say that if anybody can make a little stuffed animal out of that Global Alliance robot, we'll be really excited about it. They're very cute. But moving on, if you want to know more about the demos, you can learn more in the breakout sessions that you're going to see. There's links to the demo environments beyond Plenary Day 2 for a deeper dive. Also, if you're interested in getting involved in development of standards, there's a link to Fast Minutes to be able to get involved in the development process and join our teams. If you're simply interested in deploying the standards in your environment, we have landing pages where you can come get information about the deployment. And Rishi is the perfect contact if you have questions about all of this.